Welcome to the Best Music Podcast with Dan Spencer. My name is Dan. We're going to talk about music and the methods for making music with top performers in the music industry. And this week's featured guest is Morgan Matthews. Morgan has collaborated with a diverse range of artists, including Alicia Keys, Miguel, Tory Lanez, 21 Savage, Ashley All Day Kiiara, Conor Maynard, and so many others. He has written and produced and contributed to 3 number 1 Billboard charting songs and albums. One of those number 1 hits is Show Me Love by Alicia Keys and Miguel, which was also nominated for an NAACP award. Morgan has also collaborated with major brands such as the Ellen DeGeneres Show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, the Latin Grammys, Home Advisor, MTV, MTV2, CBS, and PBS. He has a publishing deal as a songwriter with Universal Music Group and also runs his own music company, Addictive Music Group, which I can't wait to find out more about. You can find Morgan at Morgan Likes Music. That's MorganLikes. Music spelled conventionally. Morgan, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Morgan, let's get warmed up with a quick one. What's a piece of music or a song you've heard in the past couple of days that really stood out to you?
I listen to this pretty much the same music like every day. So,
really?
Yeah, and I have been for several years. So,
okay, can you tell us a little bit about that?
I like to listen to simple music that's like fun teenager music. That's one style I like. And then sometimes I'll listen to like R&B music. Then sometime, and probably that's it. I don't know. I'll listen to whatever. I don't like to go into like metal and stuff like that though.
So when you say you listen to the same music every day, are you listening to the same artists, or you're describing that you're listening to the same genres or styles of music every day?
No, I literally, sometimes I'll go back and like, yeah, I'm going to start my day and click this song or this album and just I don't know why. I need to listen to different music. But when these big hit songs come out from these new people, I will go and, because we all hear them, I'll go listen to them too. But every once in a while, I'll just listen around to hear what's going on with the new sound and stuff, just to, see what's up.
It's like market research.
Basically.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your production and your philosophy and approach to production. A lot of your very successful productions that you've done have the similar vibe of this minimal production thing that's happening and really leaving a lot of room for the vocals and the story to be told over the production, so that the story really is what is happening and the production is just there to sort of create a space for that story. So can you talk a little bit about either the philosophy that brought you to produce like this, or what your thought process was artistically to create this kind of a feeling to highlight the story in the vocals?
That's the main part of the song that everyone listens to, right? So when I'm making the music, there's been times where I overdid it and added all these extra sounds, but then someone listens, they're like, no, and they want this other one where there's basically nothing in it so that they can be the star. And then all the songs that I think I would grow up listening to, or we all did, it was probably because of those words. That's what I think. Some of the biggest songs are just a couple of instruments, right? That's what I think when I'm making it.
So when you are approached or you have a collaboration with someone like, let's say, Alicia Keys, and like we mentioned in the intro, you produced the number 1 Billboard adult R&B single, Show Me Love. was really the idea and the thought process coming into it to let the vocals shine, to let the vocals lead, and you're just there to support the vocals.
So what was I thinking when I made that music?
Exactly.
I just came in here every day and grabbed a different instrument and just started making music, and somehow that one got to her. But I knew
Wow.
I knew that track was a good one when I made that one. It took a long time to find its home, but it did.
So when you say it took a long time to find its home, do you mean that it took a long time in the actual production or in terms of actually shopping the track around?
Um, it took. I never shopped it around us,
Oh, wow.
but it just found its way, I guess.
Wow.
But it didn't take a long time to make that. Probably less than a day I spent on it. And then the guy that wrote the lyrics, I don't know how long he took. But
So, oh, go ahead.
that was it. It's just a guitar, bass, little bitty drums, and
Well, I think what's interesting is that we've seen this trend in the music industry of the superstar producer and people, we can talk about like the David Guettas, the Aviciis, the Dead Mouses, where it's all about the production. And then when it comes time to make a track, it's David Guetta featuring so and so. It's David Guetta featuring the vocalist or the artist. And you've really gone completely in the other direction that the way that you're producing these particular tracks is it's not about trying to be a show off or make the thing about you. It's really about keeping the focus around the song and being in service to the music.
you're the only person that's ever told me that, besides one of my friends. Most of the people that are my age, or that I also know other people that do music like this. Some of them are famous, and they're like those people. They'll say their name on the beat or the track. I didn't go that route. If I did, I think my life might be different right now.
Different in what way?
Shoot, whenever you hear these songs, the producers, all of a sudden one day they started to shout out their name at the beginning of the song, and then the producer came out of the basement or whatever, and then they were the celebrity. But when I was growing up listening to music, we just heard the song. They all did too. I guess they wanted attention or something. I just wanted to make music.
So the goal was not to elevate yourself to some celebrity status. The goal was not to um, be the quote unquote face or the artist. The goal was to be able to make music, create music, and have those collaborations and be able to, correct me if I'm wrong, live your life creating music.
Yeah, yeah.
So could we distill your approach to producing as in it really is in service to the music, to the artist, to the song, in service to the collaboration, and you're trying to just give it its best canvas possible for the story to be told.
Yeah, that's what I try to do. And
So, can you tell us a little bit about Addictive Music Group? So, is this a company that you started?
yeah, before I got a deal with Universal Music Publishing, I started. I had a few different managers, and then another company signed me, and they were trying to do something. I don't know what they're doing now, but they were trying to do something like the old school record label model, but in a new time now. You know what I mean by that?
I actually don't because the old school record model only works if there's a significant amount of money going into it, and there's not that kind of money right now. So maybe you could break it down and explain how this was working.
I never saw anything like that either, and I got picked up by them, and this guy had done tons of he had done lots of number ones, and he had a house, and he was bringing in people to his home with multiple stories, and he was producing, bringing on producers, artists, writers, whatever, and then helping them develop their craft, helping push their, with all of his personal connections, basically. And maybe he would say, I'll try to get somebody a publishing deal, or I'll try to get someone a record deal. But I think the new goal was, to compete with the old school model, because as we all kind of see now, we have the internet, all of our eyes are starting to open. That's all smoke and mirrors. That kind of model, the old one is, and more and more people are doing this now.
Okay, so let's see if I've understood this correctly. So, what you're describing is a departure from the old way of making music. The old way of making music is there's a record company that fronts the money to the artist to make the record. The artist makes the record, then has to pay back the record company. And if they successfully pay the record company back after making the record, then they can keep what comes in after that. So that's the old way. And then in addition to that, when you're talking about smoke and mirrors, correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about, labels having one particular kind of act that's competing against another type of act at another label, and there's only room for those two acts. And it's as if they're creating the only vertical for progress in music that is possible. Is that correct?
I mean, like, from what I've seen, there's not a lot of transparency. They don't.
Yes, I see.
And if you're just a person listening to a song on the radio and you see this big time singer or whoever on a billboard or on television, you're like, wow, they're a superstar. You don't know how that happened. That's what I mean. Smoke and mirrors, deception. You could actually do that yourself right there. That's what we're trying to prove.
So what you're talking about is this guy taking his house with evidently a large house and bringing in producers, artists, everyone to create the content, and then to be more equitable and transparent in the distribution of how the money's made and how the stars are made and things like that.
And also the business side. Like, not a lot of people knew. I still don't think a lot of young people know how all the different kinds of royalties, how to collect them, where to go to get them. There's not just BMI and ASCAP. That's not it. It doesn't just end there.
Sound Exchange, Harry Fox.
Yeah, and there's so many other things since the internet is out now that you want somebody that actually knows how to do all of this. And if you can get a kid that just makes beats or tracks and puts them on the internet, and if you're partners with the right people, you can monetize and protect all of that stuff easily.
So is the idea to essentially act like an artist advocate and making a business out of advocating for artists?
At first, I didn't want to bring on artists really, but so many people were contacting me. I was like, I don't really know how to mess with an artist, but we'll try. So I wanted to mess with just producers because I know that field the best. But then more and more people said, well, I'll help you do this. And we've all put our heads together and we try. So I guess so.
So, for an example, let's talk about maybe Kid G and the latest single. That's KIDDG's latest single, "I Hope." Was this through your company, Addictive Music Group?
That was straight through me. So that could be with Addictive Music. Sure. That could go on their credits. It's also going to be going through Universal and the kids with Geffen Records, so that'll go with them.
But what I mean is that if we look at Addictive Music Group, Kid G is listed on there as an artist who's part of Addictive Music Group.
He's not. I haven't signed him. He's signed under Geffen Records. They reached out to me and said, we're going to do a song on this track of yours. So that's a credit that the company did for production.
I see. Right. So some of the artists that are listed under Addictive Music Group are artists that Addictive Music Group has supplied tracks for or worked with.
Addictive Music Group has about, those are the big hitters right there at the front of the site. Yeah. Underneath the pages or whatever, we have probably around 80 different producers and writers and artists that we're collecting on all of them and helping them and trying to push them. And they're not on the level of Miguel or, somebody that you see up there. Those are just, those are probably, all of those are people that I produced.
Okay, so I think I've got this. So Addictive Music Group, what you guys are doing is you're taking care of the royalties, you're taking care of collecting royalties from all the different avenues, right? Because you have your PROs like your ASCAP, your BMI, your CSAC. Then you've got your Sound Exchange, which is collecting international royalties. Then you've got your Harry Fox, which is collecting royalties off of video play and doing the sound ID and all that stuff. And you guys are taking all of that, bringing it together and making it easy and accessible for artists to just focus on the art while you guys take care of the business in a transparent way.
Right. For the Kid G song, since I have a deal with Universal Music Publishing, I have to register my personal work with them because I had a publishing deal. So I have to send my personal. But let's say I have XYZ amount of producers that are with Addictive. So if I get an opportunity and I throw that to one of them, we have the same connections as Universal. So we'll register and we'll collect it ourselves instead of me trying to go through that middleman. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I do. It's another avenue to use the material.
It stays in this family and we grow ourselves. Do you see?
Yeah, that's super fascinating. So the idea is you have this talent and this ability to create content, and sometimes it's the right time to give it to someone else, and sometimes it's the right time to keep it in-house and have your group or your ecosystem of producers and artists created up.
Yeah.
Cool. So you actually started making music for TV. Some of your credits are for PBS, and I'm not exactly sure what you did for Ellen and Jimmy Kimmel. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Those were some of the artists that I did songs with. They went on there, so I signed a paper. Right. So that means that I didn't go and make music. I did make music for the news. I made music for the news.
Like CBS, I think, was one of your credits?
That's TV, but I'm talking the New York News or something like that, where they go up and it's on the radio.
The New York Times.
That was a documentary that someone did, and they put, but I can't remember.
Okay, that's fine. No worries there. So you started off, though, some of your earliest credits are for like PBS and for making music for television. So is that how you got your start? Essentially, like for MTV, MTV2?
Those were some of my first credits that were notable. But before that, I was doing music for everybody I could. Those were notable. I didn't get a lot of money at all for that, though. But it was
more about, right, it's about getting that first gig, getting the connections, getting your name out there.
Yeah, when that happened, it kind of looked like people thought, this person's actually doing it. He got something on TV. I'm like, well, I didn't get really any money, though, because somebody else that didn't do anything got all the money. So that I started learning things.
So you've been producing for a long time, and your first commercial gigs where you really get credit are for TV. How do you then make that transition away from doing music for MTV and PBS into producing for people like Alicia Keys?
Um, I was just making different tracks. The television things like the MTV, it was lots and lots of tracks for this TV show called Undressed.
Okay.
And some guy told me, he's like, I know the supervisor of this company, they shoot the stuff. So I sent him a folder of music, and then on my royalty check, I saw all these television show things, and I was like, well, it looks like you did your job. He's like, yeah, you're going to get your check. But he was over there handling the business and getting the money. So that's how I made the transition, was just didn't talk to him anymore.
Wow.
I
So
could
essentially sorry, go ahead.
I could have kept sending him music and getting on TV, but he was probably, in my mind, now that I'm older, I think that guy was saying, hey, if you guys want these, give me X amount of dollars and you guys can use them. And I was getting like the performance, or every time it played, he got the thousands of dollars in cash.
Oh, wow. That's wild. So is this part of what inspired you to start Addictive Music Group, is that you had these bad experiences and you wanted to give other artists good experiences with this type of thing?
Yeah, that, and there's so many people that will never, in today's time, I don't think they'll ever like get a track with a big artist, and I wanted to help those people. There's so many good people, they're better than me. And I was like, if I start this and we get the right team behind us and everyone focuses on the right thing, we could help young people that produce.
Huh. So you get your start in writing music for TV. Like you said, there may have been some funny business going on with some middlemen. So you make a transition to actually producing for artists, even though you said you've been producing for a long time, but you really made the leap into the Billboard side of things, which is, working with major artists, major labels, getting those Billboard number ones. Can you talk a little bit about getting signed as a songwriter for Universal Music Group? Like, is someone hearing your tracks and you get a call one day? Is there a meeting you take? How does someone get into that position, or what does that look like?
So there's the long story or the short one.
Oh, let's go for the long story, please,
Well,
Morgan.
I don't know who's going to watch this. So, like, I had, when you get a popular song or one that's collecting a large amount, plus I had like 300 other songs that were generating royalties. Maybe it might be 5 cents, maybe it might be $5 a quarter, but they were all. Plus, then you have 3 number ones. One was in Italy, one was the top hip hop album. Then Show Me Love was on the radio at the time. And then I had a couple people were like, I can help you get a deal. I just want this amount if I get it for you. I'm like, okay. So they started sending out emails, and everybody jumped on that. We set up one at this place, Cobalt. And then those people went in there and talked for me, and I guess they asked for a ridiculous amount of money that wasn't going to happen. And I knew that, but I think it was, they just said, no, we don't do deals like that anymore. So that didn't work. And then I thought, my window's over. So I kept making music. And then all of a sudden one day, this kid buys a track from me, and then these lawyers were sending papers. Hey, you need to sign this, and it said Interscope on it. All of this, and I'm like, okay. So I got another one with this new kid that no one's ever heard of. So he's just now got signed to Interscope, but he's not on the internet. You can't read anything about him. So they must be raising him up.
Oh, yeah, R&D.
So right when I signed that, the CEO of Interscope calls me, and he's like, I heard that you just did this. I'll give you this amount of money right now just to own that song right there, all the publishing. And I was like, well, wait, because I've done this song and this song. And he's like, hold on. He's like, let me call you right back. Then he calls me back and he says, link me in with the people you know, which were the people in that house and stuff. And then they all talked, and from then on, I was kept in the dark. But he's the CEO of Interscope, but he has a publishing company with Universal Music Publishing Group.
I see.
So they collect his publishing. He's just getting extra money.
So basically what happens is you write this great track that someone buys from you. So you had this listed on, and we don't say what site, but unless you want to promote that, I'm not sure. So you have your tracks either listed on a site or through a friend, someone buys this from you. Now you don't know who's bought it from you, but all of a sudden after they buy it from you, you start getting letters from lawyers being like, we need you to release your rights to this song. And you're going, hang on a second, guys, because I know how royalties work. I don't want to sign away publishing for this just yet. So what happens is, so do you end up signing away all your publishing for this song and taking the lump sum, or do you keep royalties?
We ended up I got a deal where every time I submit a song to Universal, they collect 15%.
Oh, that's not bad. That's really cool.
That man had big plans for that song. It was already going in like the Sims video game or something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's why he was after it. And then that was like his new artist of his company. So I was like, who is this guy? I can't see him. And then all of a sudden you see when he starts dropping songs on Spotify, no followers. But the next day he's on, the top chart underneath Bieber. I'm like, wow, he put a lot of money to do that, So.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. So you get sort of catapulted into this hookup with the Universal Music Group for writing these songs. Whenever you want to submit a song there, they take it for you. Now, when you're submitting songs, is this just songs that you're writing, or do you co-write with other artists and then submit?
It's any finished song, so they go and collect the publishing.
Interesting. And so the advantage for you for doing that is that because it's Universal Music Group and because it's through Interscope, you can submit these songs to like major label artists, and you can submit these tracks to major label artists. Is that correct?
They give out a list like every month, and it says this guy's looking for this girl's looking for that, but they've never helped. I don't mean to put anybody down. It's just so hard. You need to know the artist. They try their best to help, but all of those things have happened on my own.
Oh, wow. Okay, fascinating.
They're not out there being like, this guy needs this and send us something. They just send a list.
Right.
They're giving them tracks and they could pitch it to the artist, but how do I know they're really calling them?
Well, but then on top of that too, like you said, there's so many layers of separation. It's Universal Music Group in this case is acting sort of like a middleman. So they're taking songs from you and they're saying, listen, artist, here's an option. But they're not saying, oh, listen, we really like Morgan. We think you should pick this one. They're just saying, here's an option. Which is, I suppose, their job to do, right? Is to take and present options. But then, like you're saying, there's this other layer of complexity of, okay, who's on the artist's team? What does the artist manager think? Does the artist manager have a cousin who's also making beats, who's also with Universal Music Publishing? Because in that case, it's a high probability that cousin might get the. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, that's what all of this is. If you can make something, though, that's an open track so that they can get inspired, you have a better chance. or if you just become their friends.
Mm. So, Morgan, do you have any advice for young songwriters? Well, not even young, we don't even to put an age on it, but songwriters who are just starting to get into this game. And maybe for them, their end goal, their sort of Mount Everest is having a major publishing deal. What would you say to those artists or songwriters?
Start, first off, sign up for BMI or ASCAP, and then that's going to cover your songwriting, and then go get some kind of pub admin online for free, like Song Trust or Audium. And every time you do a song, put it in there and put your percentage as a producer or a writer. If you did the music, put your percentage in. And as your publishing rakes up 100 songs, 50 songs, and they start collecting, then either find somebody that knows a publishing company, or just be a cold calling person and go cold call them, or send an email, say, hey, this is a list of all my songs. This is about how much they make. What do you guys think? And they'll send an email back if the catalog is worth something to them.
So, really, what I hear from what you're saying is it's hugely important to have a large body of work.
Well, that's because I didn't have any good songs for a long time. So I was registering.
Oh, so you were just throwing darts in the dark trying to hit something?
Yeah. So some people might do 5 songs, and then out of one of those, it pops. And now you could get a deal off of that one song. But it took me a long time to run something that made a good amount of money. But all the little ones stack up.
Absolutely. And would you also say that the learning process of going through and writing all those songs made you a better producer and a better songwriter? And you might not have gotten to that level had you not done that much practice, essentially making songs and beats.
Yeah, you have to do that.
Wow. So maybe we could talk a little bit about the song, we mentioned it earlier, that's featured in the New York Times documentary. How did that come about? Was that through the UMG?
Just the actual guy just sent me an email and said, I like this beat. I want to, and he's like, I made a documentary. The New York Times is going to use it. They gave me a budget, and then I said, okay, here's the paperwork. I wrote it up, and then the New York Times people came in the emails, and then I actually like to get on the phone with people, which is a lost art, it looks like. They email or text, so I just called him, because people leave their phone numbers and emails. So I called him on the phone, and I talked with him about it, and then it was over.
Wow. So in this case, the person who's making this documentary doesn't find you through a Universal Music Group. They don't find you through Addictive Music Group. They find you through what? Just researching beats on the internet, and they find their way to you?
That's how everybody has, pretty much. Except
Wow.
except the Alicia Keys one. That was, somebody went into a studio in Florida, and the engineer heard the song, and then he's like, did you make this track for this girl that came in here? And I was like, yeah. And then they were like, just send more, because I record a celebrity artist. And that guy, he was trying to write stuff for Ed Sheeran at the time. That's why it was acoustic, but somehow it wound up with her. But it's still cool.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you're going to miss Ed Sheeran and end up with Alicia Keys, I can't think of a better way to miss Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. So, Morgan, let's talk a little bit about how you stay creative, what your work looks like and how you find different aspects of your lifestyle enable you to stay creative. So, for example, how many hours of sleep do you need to feel good and creative? And do you find that you hit a number of hours of sleep in a night and all of a sudden the next day you're just not coming up with as many ideas or you don't feel as motivated?
Yeah, I used to. I think I used to push myself a little too much, and I would just drink energy drinks all the time and stay up till the next day. And then now it's more like I don't sleep in a lot, but I'll sleep and I'll get up. And the older you get, it's harder to keep going. But I'm not really that old. But
Yeah, even for me, I'm turning 30 in November, and like thinking back to when I was 20, like it is a different ball game, man. It's like your body is not playing by the same rules anymore. Have you ever tried using a mindfulness or meditation to impact creativity or performance?
no. What is
Ha-
that?
okay, so like even anyone who's performing in any field, so like Michael Jordan, for example, um, will sometimes use mindfulness and meditation to help focus and clarify the present moment. Um, or some people use it for anxiety, some people use it for depression. But a lot of people in different fields actually use mindfulness and meditation to increase productivity. Like for me, I like to take 15 minutes to an hour in the morning and just nothing's going on. I close my eyes and I just meditate. And then the rest of my day is a lot more productive and a lot more clarity of thought for me. Anyway, that's my experience.
What do you think about?
Well, that's what's interesting, Morgan. It's that your brain thinks, your mind thinks thoughts. And so the whole thing is not that you're sitting there thinking about something or not thinking about something. It's that you sort of get to this place where you're allowing your mind to think the thoughts that it's going to think while not getting caught up in the thoughts that your mind is thinking.
I I couldn't just sit there and do that. I could if I tried, but I've always felt like if you're not doing something, what are you doing?
Huh.
Does,
Interesting.
do you know what I mean?
I do. I understand 100% what you're saying. And I used to have that mindset for a long time. But for me, what changed it was the idea of how effective am I being while I work? And when I look as objectively as I can at myself and productivity and effectiveness within an hour of work, I get a lot more done within that hour if first I take 15 or 20 minutes and clear my mind. So it actually pays dividends in terms of how much I'm able to accomplish and how effective what I'm accomplishing is within the given time duration. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Have you ever tried using exercise to impact creativity or performance?
Like sometimes I'll go walk around.
Do you ever walk around to try and clear your head to get fresh ideas or things like that?
If I'm in here for too long, I'll get up and go outside.
Mm.
Then I'll come back inside. But or drink water or drink energy drink, so I'll have more energy.
But the idea is essentially sometimes you get to a point where either the idea is not flowing or you haven't quite found the answer to what a track needs. And so you take that moment, you step away, go outside, get some water, and then you come back and then you're back into the flow. Is that about it?
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. I like to sit and focus for a long time on it though, because then
What's
when
a long time for you?
I'll spend the whole day in here.
So like 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours?
No, I know that's a normal work day for people, but if they want to do this, you kind of have to sacrifice a lot of things. You have to spend more than that. You don't have to
Okay.
unless you're a genius. Like unless you're, because you can never stop getting better at this stuff. You can sit there and try to make something sound good. You'll learn things and grow. So I try to sit there and focus on stuff.
So we'll talk a little bit about practice in a moment. I've got one more question for you around sort of the lifestyle before we talk about practice. And do you define yourself as a producer, as a human who produces music, or something else?
Yeah, that's probably the phase, or somebody that writes music.
Huh.
I'm writing music.
So do you see yourself, like, is your concept of self that you are a music writer, or is that you're just a human and one of the things you do is write music?
Well, that's what I've given my life to for the past like 10 years. That's all I focused on.
So
So
for you at this point in your life, you are a songwriter, you are a creator of music. That is who you are.
now I'm trying to transition into helping other people, but I still like doing this. So if somebody's making music and they can't finish their track or whatever, or I hear something else, you're like, well, we could do this better, and it's they might flip out and be like, what did you do? I'm like, well, all I did was this. It's just because I've done it a little longer.
Ah.
But then
So
they
you're almost sorry, go ahead.
then they learn, and then they just go their own way.
Indeed. It's like you are from what you've said so far. We'll talk about practice in a second, but it's like you seem to have these two passions. The first passion is creating music, right? Writing music, producing music. But then the second passion is helping other people and educating other people and giving other people a platform and giving other people a boost up to help them in their journey, in their career.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you're producing for a couple hours a day, are you ever putting yourself specifically through boot camps to practice certain things? Or is it more about just doing it and by doing it, you improve your skills?
Like boot camp, like, oh, I'm just gonna focus on this right here today.
Yeah, so saying like you get a new compressor, like do you then take like 2 weeks and like force yourself to find out every single thing about this compressor? Do you see where I'm going with this? It's
I don't,
like
I don't,
exercises versus creating music.
I don't do that. No, they're
So for
just,
you, the work is the making of the music.
yeah, and all that is while you're fiddling with your compressor, trying to get it, you're still making music. You might be getting better at that little specific tool, but then when another song comes along and you're fiddling with it for so long, and you're like, dang, all I had to do was turn it off. Now it sounds better. Right? You're wasting your time. I've done that so many times.
Ah, yeah, I have too. And
You
it's just a like, yes,
you ru-
please.
we ruin our things, and now when I hear, it's so hard to ruin music now because everything sounds good. So I don't think we need really any plugins at this point. All the sounds on the internet, they're crystal clear. If people come out and put this music out and it sounds horrible, the they need to learn how to listen. That's it. They don't need all these plugins. That's not going to fix it. Just turn the volume down.
Yeah, so instead of running a compressor, just turn the volume down. And okay, so is your philosophy then around, and obviously this has changed over time, but is your current philosophy around production and what you're talking about sort of like we need to have the gold in the tracking or in the samples, like it needs to be a really solid, tight session. And then we're not going to mess with it a lot in production. And then we're just going to tidy it up a little bit, then send it out for mixing and mastering.
Well, the recording is a whole nother art that's probably lost now for young people. The recording that's a lost art, I feel like. But digital sounds and beats, if you can't just pick one sound and place it there, you just have to focus in on the right one. You really don't need to do all these other tools on it. That really you don't, unless you know what you're doing. And there's people that actually do know. You don't have to do, I did 6 different things on this. Just turn the volume down because it already sounds amazing. All of these digital drum sounds and stuff, they're perfect. Just leave it there.
That is really interesting advice. So what would you also say to someone who's got a library of 2,000 snare drum sounds and they're spending a week for one song going through this library trying to find the perfect snare?
You're talking about yourself.
Me? Oh, I definitely have no personal experience with this whatsoever. There's no way I'm talking about myself. But seriously though, because like, especially when I first started out doing any kind of production, even if it was like, I'm more on the teaching side of things. So I was like making backing tracks for people to practice soloing with. Anything like that. It's so easy. You go online and you have all these companies marketing to young producers and producers starting out, library, 10,000 drum sounds. And I'm looking at that going, who has time to go through 10,000 drum sounds? So could you maybe talk a little bit about your philosophy when it comes to dealing with large libraries of sounds?
Look at me. I've gone through the libraries. You'll be going.
You went through the libraries?
I have lots of them. You'll be going through, and then you're like, not this, but you'll remember. Well, I'll use that on another one, and then you'll click, and then after you get bored, then you just buy new ones. But you could use the same in a hip hop song. I don't care what a younger person says. You can use those same drums for the rest of our lives.
Those 808s are going to live forever. Yeah.
The clap and the snare. Because if it doesn't sound good enough, there's a special way to use the EQ to make it sound new. That's all the new sounds they're doing. They're adding a little different EQ on them, or they're doing something. There's no new sounds. They're combining two. We can do that.
Wow. So in summary, Morgan, your advice is get the sound libraries, go through the sound libraries, find your preferences from the sound libraries, put the sound libraries into production. Don't mess with those pristine drum sounds that some engineer somewhere has gone through, like perfectly either capturing a sample, or if it's digital, it's just a perfect little group of ones and zeros making that digital sound. Leave it alone. Like, do you think we could maybe compare this to chefs who don't mess with the ingredients so much and they just let the ingredients shine on the plate?
Yeah. Unless you're trying to do something like a creative kind of a mix where you're going to enhance the song, but you know what you're doing. It's not just put reverb on things for fun to cover up a mistake. You know what I mean by that?
Listen. I'm with you 100%.
I know a lot of people that they'll use the compressor, but they don't know what they're doing. They just turn it on and start doing things because they saw a video. They don't know why they got that compressor or why they're putting it on this. They're like, well, I need to compress this. Does it really need that?
That's the question. So I guess that goes back to your point earlier of people really need to take more time to listen and develop the ears and know what you're going for, know what the sounds are. And that way you can have a much better understanding of when you get that compressor, even if you don't understand exactly all the technical aspects of how a ratio or a knee or any of that stuff works, that you can go in and recreate the sound that you've heard before. Is that about correct?
Yeah.
So, do you ever take any steps to stay creative, or is the step to stay creative sort of living in that creative lifestyle?
Yeah. For a long time, it was just whenever I was done, I'd go lay down and then start thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow. Like,
Wow.
come wake up, go tomorrow, make another. And that's just how it goes. If you're going to be an artist or a creative person, it's inside of you. You don't do it to be cool. Like my friend that wants me to buy chains. He wants
Wait,
me
like hip hop chains?
yeah,
Why?
so I could be cool.
Oh boy. Well, to each their own. For some people, that is cool, and for some people, I guess they don't care. You seem to be in the camp of people who maybe don't care quite so much about the chains. Um,
No.
but yeah, okay. So, do you ever have a time or times of day where you feel more creative?
After I get it started and then it's going and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do next? You start working on something and then you feel the next thing comes to you and you're like, okay, I'll do this. And then you might go backwards, but in the end, you want to go to the finish line. Like you want to, that's where my mind's at. But I
So
don't,
for you, it's sorry, go ahead.
I don't want to get there too quick. Like at the beginning, we always tried to finish, let's crank out this many a day. And I know people that still do that, but they're not focusing on quality, I don't think. They're just doing quantity.
So for you, the experience of creativity is not that there's a certain time of day. Like some composers prefer to write at night because they like the look of the moonlight. Some people like myself, I actually prefer to do stuff first thing in the morning. Like my most productive hours are between like 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. That's when I get the most done. But for you, what you're saying is it's less about the time of day. It's more about just finishing an artistic or creative endeavor, and then you just feel that the next thing is ready to start happening, and then you go with it.
Yeah.
So, have you ever burned out from spending too much time on music? Like, has it ever gotten to the point where you just sort of don't want to sit at the computer and you want to go do something else?
There's been that. I've had that phase a little bit, but I don't let it get me down. I'll just get back
So,
up.
what do you do when that happens? Do you like say, all right, I'm going to take the day off from writing and you go outside, you do something else? What is your tactic for dealing with that when that occurs?
If I'm going at it all day and all night, just working for multiple days, and then you start losing big amounts of sleep and you're pushing your body to the limit, then I'll realize that, and I'll, okay, I'm gonna relax a little bit.
So, when you're writing songs and when you're producing beats, how do you experience that inspiration? Do you experience it like a download? Does it just sort of like come to you? How does it feel when you get inspired?
I don't know. I just always liked to do music, and I always wanted one on the radio. So I was like, I'm gonna keep doing it until it happens.
That's all. And hey, here you are. Congratulations. Amazing. Um, okay. Do you prefer to write after listening to other music, or do you prefer to write from a clean slate where you're not influenced by something you've heard before?
I'll listen to other music. Every day is different. So if I listen to other music, then I'm like, dang, I can never be that good. And their stuff's good.
And then does that inspire you to go work harder and make more music?
Well, I'll never be as good as those. I don't know how those people. I used to think it was because of the mix, but I've had some of the greater mixers do mine, and I was like, he just turned the volume up. So I think that it really is the sounds that they choose, or the equipment they have, or just the way that they play. The instrument.
Interesting.
Or they're in another country or something. They have special. They're the ones getting the sounds before we get it.
I see.
I thought that for a long time. Like, what? How are these people getting all these cool sounds and the rest of the world doesn't? Because they're getting free trials before everyone else does? I don't know.
Well, someone has to make the sound first, right? It has to start somewhere. Like, think about let's take dubstep for an example. Like 1990s England? Like, seriously? Like, that's where we first heard wobbled bass, is like in England, like 20 years before like Skrillex.
Did they have those on a keyboard or a physical keyboard, or was it a computer?
Now that I don't know. That I don't know. But the sounds have to start somewhere. It's like the sounds have to start somewhere, and then you get a small local group of people who get it and make it, and then it expands out. Like, let's talk about the difference between I mean, maybe you know about this, maybe you don't, but I mean, anyone could go listen to it. Maybe listen to like commercial house music versus South African house music. And South African house music has a very particular way that they approach the bass and the mix and all this stuff, that it's a particular sound from a particular area.
Mm-hmm.
So that sound had to start somewhere, and that started in South Africa, and that's why we call it South African house music. So maybe the trick is not to look for what other people are using for sounds. Maybe the trick is to be a sound maker and make your own sounds.
Yeah, there's people out there that just sit and design sounds.
Ah.
I don't have that gift.
It's an interesting one. And then plus, if you really are making a sound, then it actually takes a lot of work, because then you have to like map it out for different DAWs and different systems. At DAW, for our listeners, digital audio workstation. It's how people record and produce music. It's a software interface. It's a lot of work making different instruments and things.
Yeah.
So Morgan, those are all my questions for you. You have anything to talk about that we didn't mention?
I think you got it all.
All right, amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, you can check out Morgan at Morgan Likes Music. Check him out. And Morgan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.